Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Wellness Circuit podcast. This is our, I think, episode number 8. And today, in our episode, we have with us Mr. Mukul Pandya, who has been with Wharton for a few decades, working on their as a chief editor for their online journal. But that is not why he is here. He is also here because he has been a stroke warrior and is thriving today despite all that he has faced in his life.
I was just amazed at how far along he has come and how many AI tools he has taken and embraced to survive and to move along in life. I think his journey speaks along not just about AI tools but also about his own family that has given him a great support. Welcome aboard, Mukulji.
Thank you very much. It's an honor for me to be here with both of you.
Absolutely.
Tell us a little about yourself and your life before the strokes. First, we want to know who you are, your career, and where you're coming from.
Sure. So I've been a journalist for about 47 years. I came here in 89 and I continued working as a journalist at a wonderful publication in near Princeton, New Jersey, called Business News New Jersey. And I started as a staff writer, then grew into a deputy editor and then managing editor over about 8 or 9 years. And then I joined the Wharton School, as you said in the beginning. We started on Knowledge at Wharton in 1999. And then I was the founding editor and editor in chief as we added more editions in different parts of the world. I did that for about 22 years.
Wow.
Uh,
Okay.
my final year at Wharton was I was a senior fellow in the Research Center for AI and Analytics, and then I retired in 2020. So that's what I was doing before my
Okay.
stroke.
Um, so you spent more than 40 years as a writer from what you're saying. I mean,
Yes.
uh, you have been amazing, going all over the world, I should say. And what did exactly writing mean to you, and how critical and important was it for you in your life? Is it simply a profession, or would you call it your identity? I mean, how do you view writing in your life?
Yeah. So I would say a couple of things. Uh, Writing wasn't just a job for me; it was my passion. Uh, and if I wanted to understand what I think about something, writing helped me to understand how to think and what I think. It was a way of organizing my ideas, and so that was the first value of writing. The second and perhaps more important part of writing is that is how I connected with others. You see, it's not just understanding what you think, but how do you communicate with one another. And uh, initially it was through print, and then it was through uh, magazine journalism, and then it was through online journalism and mobile phone-based journalism, and writing has been pretty much both a profession, a passion, uh, but also my identity. I always saw myself as a writer and an editor.
So now coming to your story, which is why we are here today, is take us back to the day you had your stroke. I read through your essay that you had written, and I think it was in 2021. So tell us what happened, and take us to that day so that we can understand exactly how it all happened.
Definitely. So I had it. This my stroke happened about 3 months after I retired. At that time, I was also dealing with a few other issues related to a pancreatitis attack that I had had back in 2016. So I had gone to Florida to for some tests at the Mayo Clinic, and I returned at midnight from Florida, really tired after a whole day of testing and meeting with doctors and all that. And in the morning, I got up and I was trying to answer a few emails that had piled up. And I found to my surprise that my fingers had stopped listening to my brain because they wouldn't hit the right keys. So if I tried to use my pinky finger to press the letter A, for example, it would hit the caps lock key. And I would have to go back and retype everything I had written. This was a strange experience. Like many stroke people who have stroke, I didn't realize that I had had stroke. Uh, it was just this: why is my left hand not listening to me? And I thought maybe I'm just exhausted because I had a very tiring day, so I went back to sleep. And then when I woke up, my wife and Hema and my daughter Tara, they were very panicky. And they both said to me, we got to go to the hospital right now, emergency room right away. So denial sort of runs in our family. I like to look at the cheerful side of things. I said, no, I'm fine. There's nothing wrong with me. I'm just tired. I'll be fine. And so Tara burst into tears because she said, Dad, listen to mom and me. I looked up your symptoms online and we've got to go right away to the hospital. And when she cries, it melts my stubbornness. So I said, all right, let's go. And we went to the hospital. We described our symptoms. And immediately the triage process put me right at the top of the list. And the triage nurse asked me to hold up my hands as if I was holding a pizza box like that. And right now I'm able to hold them both steady. But on that day, my right hand was steady, the left hand went like that. I could not hold it up. And so immediately they said, stroke alert. And then after that, everything is a blur. Uh, Later on, they told me that I had had what is called a pontine lacunar stroke, which is what happens when the pons, which is a deep area in the brain, if an artery is blocked there, that's what causes that kind of stroke.
I'm trying to still assimilate what you said just now. Because, in fact, just recently I had another friend, her husband had a stroke. And unfortunately, uh, they didn't realize the symptoms immediately as you were able to go to the ER. And that person, he's in life support right now.
My gosh, I'm
It
so
just
sorry.
tells me how critical it is to go as soon as you find something wrong. And I'm glad that your wife and daughter really got you in
They get all the
doctor.
credit for it.
Yes, yes. And so when you were there at the hospital with the stroke, how long did it take for you to do rehabilitation and recover, come back to some kind of life, some kind of average life that you could lead?
So I was in the hospital for 5 days before they moved me over to the rehab hospital as an inpatient. So I was in inpatient rehab for about 3 months and then outpatient rehab for about 1.5 years. So, for example, the way I'm able to speak now is the result of about almost 2 years of speech therapy. In the beginning, when I had my stroke, I kept mangling my words, and I had to, think. And sometimes I realized ahead of time that I'm not going to be able to say this word, so mentally I would quickly switch to a different word, so that I could communicate.
Wow, okay. I'm sure that should have been an arduous and long journey back to the life that you were looking to. And especially, like, I know you said you consider writing as your identity, and it's an important. How did it feel when you could no longer use your hands for writing? And I mean, how much did you gain back after the rehab, by the way?
Well, that was probably the darkest period of my life, and I went into a deep depression. In fact, people think that stroke affects you physically, and that undoubtedly is true. But what many people don't realize is that the real blow after a stroke is to your sense of self. Because after 45, yeah, almost 40, more than 40 years as a writer and editor, I could neither write nor could I edit. And for those of us who identify ourselves with the work we do, um, uh, it's a real question. If I've been writing and editing for 40 years and I can't do it anymore, who am I? That's a real crisis of identity that comes up at that time, and I went into quite a deep depression. Um, I felt repeatedly that. There's a revolutionary in the Spanish Civil War, La Pachinara, who used to say, it is better to die on your feet than to live on your knees. And that that idea kept coming again and again in my mind, and I did explore with a friend of mine the possibility of going to Switzerland, where there are ways of very legally and painlessly uh, helping you exit through euthanasia. I was considering that, though I was not actively suicidal. I was not sort of looking for ways to end my life, but I had reached that point, and then luckily I found a book that saved my life.
And what book is that? Because, I understand what you're saying with regards to depression and thinking about going to Switzerland. Because there has been times in, I think we all have such lows in our life, especially people who go through such adversities. And so please tell us about what saved you. I mean, what was that
Well,
book?
I have it right here. It's called Identity Theft. Uh, I don't know if it can
Yeah,
be
can you bring
seen.
it right in front of your face?
Yeah. It's Identity Theft: Rediscovering After Stroke by Deborah Meyerson and Steve Zuckerman. Deborah Meyerson was a professor at Stanford University, and a superb teacher, researcher, also a very athletic person. She had two strokes when she was in her 50s. And because her stroke was of the kind that developed serious aphasia, which is a speech impediment that some people get depending on the part of the brain that is affected by the stroke, she could no longer teach. So she lost her tenured position as a Stanford professor. And she had the same issue. If I've been a professor, I've been a teacher, and I can no longer teach, how do I? Who am I? And it's to answer that question that she wrote that book. And uh, since I was going through the same kind of challenges, it spoke to me. The reason I had never heard of her, I had never heard of this book, but I was searching online for a lot of stroke related information. And so some algorithm must have figured that out and recommended this book to me. And when I looked at that, I saw that two of my friends from Wharton, Adam Grant and Catherine Klein, had recommended her book and they had endorsed it. And so it was on the basis of my friends having recommended that book that I bought it, and that saved my life in a couple of important ways. The first and most important lesson that it taught me was to reframe in my mind what the meaning of recovery is. You see, when I had this stroke, for some reason, I got the false impression that if I work really, really hard, if I go through my physical therapy, speech therapy, occupational therapy, 3 or 4 hours a day, then in 3 months I'll be back to who I used to be. And identity theft helped me realize that that just doesn't happen. Especially when when your brain has been damaged, you're not going back to who you used to be. People talk about bouncing back. In life, you can't really bounce back after a stroke. But what you can do is you can bounce forward. And by bounce forward, the way she defined it is that you come to terms with what are your current capabilities after stroke, and how do you build a meaningful life around your current capabilities. So you may not go back to who you used to be, but you can go forward and you can rebuild yourself into something new. And that insight is what saved me. Because then I calmed down, stopped thinking about Switzerland, and I started looking around to see how can I rebuild in the base of what I have. And because my job had been my last job at Wharton had been about AI and analytics, I started looking to see if there are any AI tools that can make up for my physical deficits.
Thank you for that. Bouncing forward. What a way to put it. I think I need to read that book now. And this is what I usually call as a new normal.
Yes,
People think, when will I become normal? So there is no such thing as like where you can go back. Your life keeps on changing and you find your new normal and
precisely.
your new routine. And I think that's wonderfully put. I'm so glad that that book helped you. So can I say that was the moment you realized that you're like, you're getting your life back, or was it after finding the AI tools?
Well, one of the most interesting things happened is that I wrote to both Adam and Catherine once I started getting back to my once I had calmed down, to thank them for recommending the book and tell them how much it helped me. And they put me in touch with Deborah and
Oh,
Steve.
oh,
And by
wow.
then they had started a non-profit called Stroke Onward. And the purpose is very simple. Stroke Onward's purpose is very simple. See, my experience, and I guess also of most stroke survivors, is that if you had a stroke, the US medical system is absolutely fantastic at physical aspects of a recovery. So, as I explained in my own case, they put me into critical care right away. They did an MRI, they found out what kind of stroke they have. They moved me quickly into rehab, PT, OT, physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech therapy. All those things are addressed. The physical aspects of recovery are addressed right away. What is not addressed is the emotional, psychological, and identity aspects of recovery, which in some ways are the most critical of all, because unless you recover mentally, and that's going to affect your physical recovery also. And so that's the gap in the system, not just in this country, but in many places. Last week we had an event when Stroke Onward collaborated with Digimentors and the Indian Journal of Medical Ethics. And even in India, there is a tremendous uh, uh, lack of recognition that the emotional, psychological, and identity aspects of recovery are as important. And that's what Stroke Onward and I try to help as much as I can.
Wow. Yes, and I think rightly said, especially the mental health, the emotional aspect for people who have gone through major adversities in life, very few can focus on. And I'm so glad that this nonprofit is doing that for stroke victims. It is very heartwarming for us to see someone who has gone through all that and supporting an organization now working with it. You are advocating for stroke victims. I mean, it's just amazing to see that.
Mukul, very, very enlightening set of answers. As you said, the current system focuses mostly on physical rehab rather than the mental aspects of it. Not to take away any of the physical rehab part, because that is the first thing that the hospitals currently take care of, because that's the first thing, especially for stroke survivors.
Yes.
Because within the first 2 or 3 hours, if you don't take care of the patient, then the patient is done forever. They're physically unfit to take care of themselves for the rest of their life. So they took care of you for the first few hours, and then comes the mental part of it. And then now comes, because the entire life, say for the past 40 to 40 odd years, you have been into writing and publishing, and that is part of your passion as well as a profession. And suddenly being hit by the fact that you've not been able to do that as a part of your daily routine, now you're stuck in the crossroads. What do I do now? I've been doing this. But now we are also at the crossroads where, okay, last thing I did was doing AI related publications. How do I repurpose my life using those AI toolkits? Now it's all about reuse, repurposing. It's all about those three R's in life. How do I repurpose my life to using these AI skills that everybody's talking about? I know marketers, when I was in one of those jobs, latest in this job was about text to speech and speech to text. And then now also I've been hearing that you also talked about speech to text and how you had some early frustrations about it. Could you talk to us about what were the earlier frustrations you had about it and how you conquered it?
Of course, I started writing with AI in a very simple way. On my basic tools on the from Google and Apple that were on my phone and the laptop. So, for example, as you know, if you're typing, trying to respond to a text message, uh, it they will use they will suggest words that you can use. So if the word is correct, you can just tap it and you don't have to type it.
Yes.
And that predictive analytics that which is programmed into many of these devices was my first tool. Because so if I had to say I'm going to, and then the phone would ask, should the next word be hospital? And then if it was right, then I would just click, just
Because they
pause
know your
that.
background. Okay.
Right, right. So,
Can I
so
just pause a minute and then ask you, how much of your fingers left hand is back to what it was before the axe stroke?
it's not 100%.
It's
For
not hundred
example,
percent.
I can't. I can no longer clip my nails, for example.
You need help.
I need to go to a salon to get that done.
Okay.
Uh, so that weakness is still there, both on my left side. It is much less after almost 5 years of physical therapy and occupational therapy, but I am not back to where I used to be.
Okay. Now let's go
Uh,
back to our AI topic. Apple and
right.
Google. Sorry.
So there was these simple tools that I started with. Also, WhatsApp has that voice notes feature
Oh
where you can
yes.
just press a button and you can, if you want to communicate something about, I gone to the hospital today, this is what happened, these are the tests that were done. You can record all that without really typing anything.
Absolutely.
And so these were the tools that I started using to communicate with people in the beginning. And this was like a ray of light bursting through the darkness because in the beginning, after my stroke, I had to ask my wife and daughter to even to respond to a text message from someone or an email from someone. I had to ask them to type. I was not able to walk. I was in a wheelchair. Even if I tried to eat, there was so much spasticity in my hand that the food would be thrown around. And so the nurses would put a bib around my neck. And that infantile feeling of helplessness,
Of course. Of
that
course.
contributed in a big way to, is this kind of a life really worth living? But with rehab and as you correctly said, the physical aspects of rehab are as important. And the therapists were so patient, and they are, I believe, the unsung heroes of the
Absolutely.
medical profession.
Absolutely.
The physical
Because that's the
therapists in
first thing we
particular.
need to take care of. Because
Exactly.
I agree, the mental help comes later, but the physical help comes within the first hour of taking first
Absolutely.
hour of the
I
stroke.
couldn't agree more. I couldn't
Yeah.
agree more. But the frustration was always there that I can't still write or edit. You see, if I wanted to write a long article, I couldn't do that.
Got it.
And so, one of my former colleagues from Wharton is a very good friend now, Karthik Hosanagar. He suggested, "Have you tried speech to text tools?" And I tried a few of them, and my initial response was a lot of frustration because I don't know whether it was because I was slurring my language or because the algorithm didn't understand my Indian accent.
Okay.
That it was
That's
each.
still a problem for many of us, believe me.
I know. So every transcript I got back was completely filled with mistakes. So I would have to go back and I'd have to retype everything. And then I
Oh,
realized uh, I might as well write slowly with one finger rather than going back and correcting something that has been incorrectly written. Just when I was getting frustrated, I had a sudden unexpected breakthrough.
okay.
A friend of mine had written a book called Converted, which is all about how companies use data to win people's hearts. His name
Oh,
is Neil Hoyne, who from Google, who had written
okay.
that book.
Okay.
And I had before my stroke, I had told him that when your book comes out, I'll interview you about it and write an article about it.
Okay.
And then I had my stroke and I couldn't write. So I tapped and typed my questions on my phone and I emailed them to him. And he actually recorded his responses as audio files and he sent them to me.
Okay.
And I sent the audio files to a friend of mine who was editing a magazine, and she had them transcribed and published that article. And that happened about 8 months after my stroke. So the first time I was after the stroke that I was able to publish a long article, but nobody would have known the very complicated process
Behind
by
that,
which
that went into it.
that went into it. But in talking to my friend Deborah Yao, who had worked with me also at Wharton, she said I used a program called Otter.ai to create the transcript. Have you ever tried it? You should try it. And I tried Otter, and that completely changed my life because
Uh,
we could have a conversation with someone online, and Otter would transcribe it. And
Fantastic.
then send you back a transcript in minutes, even if it was a half hour or 1 hour conversation. This was faster than the world's fastest transcribers. He
Fantastic.
could send
Okay.
you back the transcript right away. And so I would edit the transcript. And that was very crucial. So the workflow began. So I would think of an article topic, I would think of the questions, I would record the interview. All these were all human tasks. Then I would delegate to AI the task of taking that audio file and turning it into text at lightning speed, right? Faster than any human could do it. Then
Oh,
I would
goodness.
take that file back from the AI and correct all the mistakes. Because, say, for example, if I had, this actually is a true story. I had written about one of my colleagues, Raghu Iyengar, was my colleague at Wharton. And the algorithm transcribed his name as Rachel Anger because it couldn't understand Iyengar, so it called it anger, and couldn't understand Raghu, so it turned it into Rachel,
Rachel.
getting the
Fair enough.
name, gender, and nationality. All three things were wrong. So these kinds of mistakes you have to correct. So the
Correct.
AI
Yeah.
will do things fast, but it will do them wrong, and so it'll make a best guess. So by using the human AI human workflow, I was able to reestablish my work as a writer and editor, and I've been able to write books
You
and so
basically
on.
got your life back.
Yes,
Right?
yes,
Fantastic. Fantastic.
yes.
How important is it for a stroke survivor like you to find ways to remain engaged in activities that gave their lives meaning?
I think it's crucial.
Right? I would
It's
think so.
absolutely critical. It's absolutely
Mm.
critical because when you try to rebuild a new identity, uh, it's not like you just go back to what you used to be. That may be a part of what you do. But getting involved in volunteer work, like with Stroke Onward, I'm also involved with other organizations, uh, and and even doing things that are fun and that bring joy to your life. All these are equally important parts of
Mhm.
recovery. You know, and if you keep doing that, if you keep replenishing your life through social connection, through technology, uh, it keeps you productive, it keeps you
Absolutely.
engaged, and it keeps you happy.
Nice work. If you could go back and speak to that Mukul, what was it, 2021, who was lying in that hospital bed, what would you tell him?
I would tell him you may not return to your old self, but you will find a new identity
Exactly.
and you will
Just
find
like,
a new sense of purpose. So you are stronger than your stroke. Never give up. That's the
yeah,
advice I would give.
yeah, yeah.
And I would give the same advice to everyone who is dealing with these kinds of disabilities. You are stronger than your stroke. Never give up.
And stroke is a very, I'm not sure about the particular stroke condition that you had. Was it a very specific, isolated kind of stroke which would just impair your left hand?
Yeah, so I still have left side deficits.
Oh,
I
deficits.
mentioned
Okay.
both in my hand and my leg.
Okay. Tell us a little bit more about your identity. How you think you have completely regained your identity, or you have regained much more than an identity now, thanks to the AI tools?
I think our identities are constantly evolving. They're,
Right.
even for people who haven't had a stroke, I think our identities evolve. We are sometimes the intersection of multiple identities, and sometimes one dominates, sometimes the other dominates. Uh, and so our identities are always in flux.
Exactly.
But by being very intentional and purposeful in the way we approach these issues, we can keep building our identities in ways that are of service to others, and which are also very fulfilling to us.
It's Wellness Circuit. We always ask our guests, what does wellness mean to you today? And name some wellness habits that you follow.
Wellness, I guess, means not being in pain,
Sure.
uh, uh, having good sleep at night, uh, uh, being healthy in terms of your diet and exercise, and having a healthy balance of work and play, and family time and friendly time.
Yeah.
There are many aspects to wellness, uh, and that and if you combine them all in the right way, it gives you a sense of well-being.
Yes.
That I think that's what I mean by that's what wellness means to me.
Okay. Thank you. Sudha was asking about your identity and so between losing oneself and losing the ability to perform something, I think that is where the difference is, which you spoke about finding what works as of today. So the last question from both of us: if you were to convey something to our audience out there, uh, what would it be? If there is one thing that you want them to realize in life, what would that be?
So I'll say two things. One is for those who have had stroke, uh, it's very important to find a community of support. And for those who would find it useful, I would ask them to go to the Stroke Onward website. There is a community area there, a Stroke Onward Community Circle, or SOC. It's a a place where people can find support, and I would encourage people to check that out. But going back to the mental aspect of resilience, my advice would be what I said before, which is if you had a stroke, just remember you are stronger than your stroke.
Yeah.
And never give up, never give up.
Thank you.
That would be my
Yeah,
advice
I
to
think
the,
I
the
think you
listener.
said it very well, and I'm going to stop that with that quote: "Never give up." I think that's a very
Very
good
powerful
way
statement.
to go for this whole podcast, for this episode. I think that is the takeaway for all of us: is to never give up and don't lose yourself. Thank you so much, Mukulji, for joining us today.
Thank you, Shobhaji. Thank you, Sudhaji.
Thank you very
Thank you
much.
very much. Yeah.
It's been a pleasure.